This film camera can shoot 5,000 lenses, and by using this simple adapter, so can any digital mirrorless camera also. Today we're taking a deep dive into the almost infinite world of M42 vintage lenses. So buckle up, strap your seatbelts on and enjoy the ride. So lenses with the M42 mount, or as it was sometimes called, the universal thread mount. It was called universal because it was just so common. There were so many manufacturers made lenses with this mount. I did a rough calculation recently, and I worked out that there were around about, it was a very rough calculation, but I worked out there were around about 5,000 different types of M42 lenses made. It might be a bit more than that, it might be a bit less than that, but there were many of them made. There is, gosh, a huge range to choose from. They vary in price from around about £25 to, I think the most expensive one I've seen was about £1,000. So there really is something for everybody there. A huge variety of lenses at, you know, any price you can imagine, pretty much, from very cheap to rather expensive. If you look at the rear of one of these lenses, you will see that it is really just a very simple screw thread. That's all it is. It's just a screw thread on the back of the lens. The 42 refers to, you know, in the M42 it refers to the diameter of the lens mount, so it's 42 millimeters across from one side to the other. Just a simple thread. It makes a good solid mount, so, you know, if you screw it on not too tight but just tight enough, it makes a good solid mount. It's unlikely to get stuck on your camera, as bayonet mounts occasionally do. It was a very easy mount to make. There was no real difficult machining. It's just a screw thread to machine, whereas machining a bayonet would have been rather more difficult. So very simple, very cheap to make. And it was mostly used on lenses for 35mm film cameras. I believe there were one or two exceptions, but by far the vast majority were used on 35mm film cameras. There is nothing patentable in this mount. There is nothing copyrightable, as far as I'm aware anyway, in this mount. So anybody could use it. It's just a screw. It's just a screw thread. You can't patent a screw thread. You can't have copyright or any proprietary ownership on a screw thread. That's all it is. So everybody used it. It was very common because you didn't have to pay anything to make it, and it was nice and easy and simple to machine. So that's how it got its name of the universal thread mount. So many companies used it and made lenses with it that that's where it got its name of universal. Cameras with this mount, though, were first released by Praktica, also of East Germany. So this mount is often known as the Praktica thread mount. I must admit I've not heard that used very often, but apparently it is sometimes called the Praktica thread mount. And it was famously and perhaps most comprehensively used by Pentax. So it's also become known as the Pentax thread mount or the Pentax screw mount. Even though Pentax didn't invent it, the ownership of it has kind of ended up with them in a lot of people's minds. And I must admit, in my mind before I did the research on this video, so I've actually learned something from doing this. These old Pentax film cameras, this is, I don't know what model this is, Spotmatic. This one has an M42 mount, and almost all the Pentax cameras, in fact I think all the Pentax 35mm film cameras of the time, you know, 50s, 60s, 70s, had this screw mount. They changed during the 70s to the K-mount bayonet type, but up to, I think, probably the early 70s, mid 70s, all the Pentax cameras used this screw thread. So there's a huge amount of Pentax lenses in this mount. A similar mount, and one that's often confused or sometimes confused with M42, is the M39 mount, and of course that's also often confused with the Leica L39. It's not M42 and it's not L39, it's M39. And I've got a Helios lens here, Helios 44 with the M39 mount. This was an early SLR mount used by the Start cameras, the Russian Start cameras. Whoop, that's gone. And you can get an adapter, and I've got one here, but it's actually stuck in the rear of the lens cap, the rear lens cap. Here we are. It's an adapter which will fit onto the M39 thread, and it's got an M42 thread on the outside. So whenever I want to use this Helios lens, I just screw this adapter onto the M39 thread and it works as an M42 lens. They do say, I have read, that the flange distance or register is not quite the same as M42, but I've never experienced that. I've shot this lens wide open in a whole range of focusing situations, from infinity to very close, with no problems. So as far as I'm concerned, an M39 lens can be converted into an M42 lens with this simple adapter that's now got stuck on the back of my lens. But there we are. Now, perhaps the best known manufacturer of M42 lenses, and the manufacturer, I think the only one of the major manufacturers to use it, was Pentax, and they used it on the fantastic Takumar lenses. So there's a nice combination. We've got a nice simple lens mount on a bunch of incredible lenses that are not just incredible for the images they do make fantastic images. They're also incredible for their manufacture. These are perhaps the best made lenses that I've ever encountered. I've never stripped one down. I don't know how they're made, but I know that they almost always operate beautifully and have withstood the years with apparent ease. Just shrugged them off, you know, shrugged off the time that's not been kind to many other lenses. So these are very, very, very well made lenses in engineering terms. I'm not going to look too closely into this one because it's radioactive, but this one is a super Takumar. So there were Takumars, there were super Takumars, and there were super multi-coated SMC Takumars. I think they were in M42 mount as well, but they're all fantastic. They range in price from really cheap. This is the 55mm f2 / f1.8. They are the same lens. 55mm f2 and f1.8 are the same lens, just marked differently. This is a very cheap lens. You can buy this for £30 to £50 all day long. It's a beautiful, beautiful lens. It gives fantastic images and it gives really nice background blur as well. And because it's radioactive, my goodness, it gives some fantastic, radiant, glowing colours. I do love the colours from radioactive lenses. I don't like looking into them too much, but I do like the colours that they make. As far as I'm aware, not too many of the Takumars, Pentax Takumars or Super Takumars, were radioactive. This is one of them, one of the best known, the 55mm. I think the 50mm f1.4 is also radioactive. In fact, I know it is. That's another gorgeous lens, the 51.4, either in 7-element or 8-element form. 8-element is supposed to be the nicest, but I don't know. I've never really compared. I don't really know how they compare to each other, but they're both rumoured to be beautiful, and I have shot the 7-element, and that is fantastic. The most expensive of these Takumars I've shot was the, I think it's 80mm. It's either 80 or 85mm f1.8. That was very kindly lent to me 3 or 4 years ago, and my goodness, that's a gorgeous lens. Just a stunning piece of photographic kit. It makes astonishing colours, it's very sharp, it has fantastic blur, it's just a beautiful optic. The blur can be a little rough from time to time, but you can shoot around that. It's just a gorgeous lens, and they are around about £300 to £400, maybe £500 these days. I'm not entirely sure. I think £400 is a reasonable ballpark figure for an 80mm f1.8 in Super Takumar flavour. But there are so many of the Takumars. I've just tested and shot the 100mm f2.8. That is an utterly gorgeous lens. Absolutely love that lens. Fantastic colour, and it's got a dual character as well. It can do high contrast, kind of strong looking images, or it can also do lower contrast, just beautiful, delicate images as well, depending on how you manipulate the light. So that's a gorgeous lens also. But you just can't go wrong with Pentax lenses, or come to that, a Pentax film camera. This Spotmatic is an M42. It's got a meter inside it. It's mechanical. It has no electronics. It's one that you just input the settings into yourself, and it's all the better for that because it's going to last longer. Electronics will eventually fail. So I should really have put this 55mm onto this Pentax. It's got a Helios lens on it at the moment, which we'll come to very shortly. But you just cannot go wrong with Pentax Takumars, Super Takumars, or Super Multi-Coated Takumars. All fantastic lenses. Now, if you're looking for a really nice M42 lens, then please do not overlook the Zeiss Jena lenses. These are some of the finest vintage optics ever made. There are, in my opinion, very few, if any, better. I've certainly not shot any that are better in overall terms. This is the Pankolar 50mm f1.8, and this lens is a stunner. It was made up to about, I think, the mid-80s, and this is a later one. This is the MC, or multi-coated version. Earlier ones were single-coated, and they also, many of those anyway, many of them with the zebra body. This is the black body, but many with the zebra body were also radioactive. Those are in demand for their colours. They cost more than the standard Pankolar, but in my opinion, an ordinary non-radioactive Pankolar is just as nice as the irradiated versions. There is a 50mm f2 Pankolar. That's an earlier lens that's more similar to the Biotar, and it's not as nice as this later Pankolar. If you're going for a Pankolar, you want the 50mm f1.8 in either zebra body or black body. Either will give you a very beautiful image, as will this one. This is sitting on my XT3 at the moment. This is the Flectagon, 35mm Flectagon f2.4 from Zeiss Jena. There was also an f2.8 version of this lens. This is a gorgeous lens, absolute stunner, very beautiful blur, very sharp, and a very close minimum focus distance as well. I've used this for a lot of eBay shots. It goes down to, I think, 20 centimeters. Yeah, 20, maybe 19, even a little bit beyond that if you stop it down. So a very versatile lens indeed, and a very beautiful lens indeed. There was also the Zeiss Jena Tessar 50mm f2.8. That's a really nice lens, and they sell for around about, you can probably find one if you're patient, for around about £25, but you shouldn't really be paying more than £40 for a CZJ Tessar 50mm f2.8. A beautiful lens, again with a very close minimum focus distance, as a lot of these CZJ lenses do. There was also a Pankolar f1.4 that's really in demand by collectors, and the price of that has shot up to around about £400 to £500 for a good one. It is a very beautiful lens, but I don't think it's any better than the f1.8, and unless you're a collector, I don't think you need to rush out and get one. Now, it so happens that the most expensive M42 lens I've ever used was a Zeiss Jena lens. It was the CZJ Pankolar 80mm, I think it was 80 or 85, I'll put it on screen, f1.8, and I was absolutely blown away by that lens. It's just a stunner. The Pentax 80mm is nice, that I described earlier on, but this is that bit nicer. This one, I don't have it here with me because it was kindly lent to me, but it's just a stunner. Colours are fantastic, sharpness is fantastic, blur is fantastic, but beyond those technical details, there is a je ne sais quoi element with these lenses, just a sort of a magic that emerges from it that belies its technical spec. It's definitely a lens where the whole is much greater than the sum of its parts. Those lenses will sell, the Pankolar 80mm will sell these days for certainly around about £1,000, maybe 1,300 or even more, I don't know. The collectors have gone in on that one, and I really can't blame them. You know, if I had a spare £1,000 lying about, I would very much consider getting one of those. That's how nice it is. What else have we got? We've got Helios lenses. Let us not forget the wonderful Helios lenses. This one here is a 44 version. This is a beautiful lens. It's the famous copy of the Biotar, the Russian copy of the Zeiss Jena Biotar, and this is just a stunner. This is a 13 blade version, but there are also 8 blade versions, of which I've got one on the Pentax camera here. This is the Helios 44M6. They did go up to 7. So there was the original Helios 44, then the 44-2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7, and also the M. I tested a bunch of these recently, and I found the optical difference in them from the very first version to almost the very last version was 0. I couldn't see any difference in them at all, save that the original 44 has nicer coatings that are better able to resist the sunlight, and I think contribute to slightly nicer colours also. 13 blade versions cost about £150. 8 blade versions, similar to the one on the Pentax, will cost, gosh, between £30 to £50. They're the lenses that make swirly bokeh in the back of a shot. So you know, if you like swirly stuff, as I do, this is the one to get. But they also made other lenses. They made the Helios 40, which is an 80mm f1.5. That is another swirler. It's a copy and a development of the Zeiss Biotar 75mm f1.5 of the 1930s. That is a bit of a mad lens. It's kind of certifiable. It's very beautiful and a very fantastic portrait lens, but it's not very sharp, wide open, and it's got lots and lots of optical flaws. But it is in demand these days precisely for those optical flaws, and they just are fantastic in the back of a shot. More swirl than the 44, if that's possible. It really is. Helios made some other nice lenses as well, but the 40 and the 44 are the main ones that we talk about on this show. Later Helios lenses were sent out to, I think, Japan really, to be made by third-party companies like Tokina or Cosina or makers like that. They're good lenses, nothing wrong with them, but they're not designed in East Germany. They weren't designed, rather in Russia. They weren't designed by the KMZ plant that made these Helios lenses, so they're very much a third-party thing, although they are nice. There's a 135 2.8 that's very nice that I've shot, very, very nice lens, and there are others as well. Nice lenses, but third-party Japanese, not Helios. What else have we got? We've also got the Meyer Optik lenses, loads and loads of Meyer Optik lenses, which is this one. This is an interesting one, actually. This is the Pentax 2.8, or what is it? f2.8 135 millimeters. This is a development of, or rather, it's the same lens as the Meyer Optik. I think it's the Oreston. I'm not sure of the name. I'll put it on screen. But this is a copy of a Meyer Optik lens. It's got 15 aperture blades, so it makes nice round bokeh balls. But Meyer made some beautiful lenses as well as this one. Their 50mm 1.8 is really nice. The Pentax 50 f1.8 is the same lens, both M42 screw mount lenses. They also made, and this is a copy that I'm going to show you. This is a TT Artisan copy of the 100mm f2.8 from Meyer. I think you've probably seen this before on this show. This is the one that gives the famous bubble bokeh, and this is a cheaper way of buying the Meyer lens. The Meyer lens I think you can buy for around about £200, something like that. I'll put the exact figure on screen. But this is a very interesting lens, and a nice portrait lens, and it makes some fantastic blur in the back of a shot. Loads and loads and loads and loads of bubbles. Just a stunner of a lens. So as well as lenses from the major manufacturers, there were also lenses from third-party manufacturers made in M42 mount, and they were manufacturers like Cosina, Tokina, Chinon, I believe, made quite a few M42 lenses, but there were also many, many, many other makers, some of them quite obscure. This one is, what's this one? A Rexagon multi-coated 28mm f2.8 Rexagon. I've never heard of that lens name before, but they must have sold quite a few of these back in the day. What have we got here? Now we've got Zeniton 35mm f2.8. That's another M42 lens. Both of them really nicely made. Actually, they're both all metal, very, very nicely made lenses. I've got another one here. These are just sort of random ones that I've picked up. What's this one? Gold Star, Lumax Gold Star 135mm f2.8. That's a very groovy looking lens with its kind of zebra body. Very, very stylish looking thing. But there were all manner of third-party lenses made in this mount. It was so easy to make. It didn't cost very much. It was just a simple screw mount. So manufacturers jumped on board and began putting these lenses out. Now, the exact manufacturers of these lenses, Rexagon, Gold Star, etc., I'm really not sure. They're sort of lost in the mists of time. There may have been independent manufacturers. Let me know, put it in the comments if you know. But I'm really not sure who made them or where they came from or anything about them, really. It's just that I know that there are lots and lots of third-party M42 lenses around, and many of them are still in very, very nice condition like these, and many of them are all metal, proper old school vintage lenses like these. And do remember, always when you're buying lenses and you're buying kit, it is not the kit that makes the shot. I'm sure you know that, I'm sure you're aware of that, but it does bear repeating. It doesn't matter how fancy your kit, it doesn't matter how much you've spent on it, it doesn't matter how technically good those lenses are. If you're not seeing the shot, it's not getting made. And you can make a fantastic shot with any lens, literally any lens. And so I guess the profusion of M42 lenses can only assist in that aim. So there we are, some really nice M42 lenses to explore, to experiment with, and to get the feel of what photographers were getting from their lenses back in the day, back in those days of film. So there we are. I guess that's it from me for now. Many thanks for watching, and if you've watched this far, a particular thanks to you. Many thanks go to subscribers for your support. I really do appreciate that support. And if you've enjoyed this show, maybe chuck us a sub yourself. That would be appreciated. Many thanks go to patrons for your support. Without that support, I couldn't make that show in the way that I do, so that is really very much appreciated. Thank you for that. And if you like this channel and the stuff that we do, the work that we do, and you think we're not doing too bad a job of keeping these old cameras and lenses alive for future generations to enjoy, you might consider becoming a patron yourself, and you can do that over at www.patreon.com/Zenography, and you can do that from $1 per month. As for me, that's it for now. Many thanks to everybody who's watched, tuned in, given thanks, made a comment, given super thanks, or engaged with the channel in any way. I really do appreciate it. But as for me, that is it for now. And if you're not doing anything too irksome, bothersome, difficult, annoying, or irritating next week at around this time, please do tune in and join me for a spot more Zenography. Cheerio all.